After school here, I thought I'd give an update on my latest character. It's a Scorching Ray of Immolation totem build. I wanted to start off here in Blood Aqueducts just so I can show you what the skill looks like and explain the mechanics of how it's played, because it's a little unusual. It's a totem build, of course, and so put your totems down and it will use the skill that's linked to it, in this case Scorching Ray. Looks kind of like that. So what's unique about Scorching Ray is that as soon as that beam touches the monster, it puts a debuff on it that causes damage over time. And even if the beam just sweeps across it and just barely touches the monster, even for an instant, it'll apply the same amount of debuff as if it holds the beam on it for a period of time. Now it builds stages so that damage will continue to increase the longer the ray stays on a monster, but as long as you get that first debuff off, no matter how long it touches it, you can then just summon more totems, and each of those rays that touches the monster will stack their damage. And so as many totems as you can summon and begin to burn, the more and more stacks of this debuff you can put on, the more and more DPS the skill actually does. And so the way the build scales damage, besides the normal techniques, is to increase skill duration. Skill duration increases the debuff duration on the monsters and allows you to stack up even more and more and more. So with maximum skill effect duration and with temp chains on a monster, the debuff can last up to around 8 seconds. So you can summon 2 totems per second, approximately. So theoretically, you could have maybe even 16 stacks of this burning debuff. And depending on how you build it, each of these debuffs can be somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million DPS or more. And so when you're just napping, you can just put down one set of totems and that's going to be perfectly sufficient. And then when you come to bosses, you put on your curse and you start stacking up debuffs on it to increase the DPS. So that's kind of how the character's played. That's kind of what it looks like. So I'll go back to hideout here and review the character a little bit. Okay, so character level 93 at this point. My level pretty much indicates how much I'm enjoying a build. The more I enjoy it, the longer I'll play it. It's kind of natural. If I'm really not enjoying it, I'll give up in characters very easily, even at level 80, if they're not feeling good, looking good, enjoyable to play, and find something else. So 93 is about as far as I get with the character, but I'm going to keep going with this one because it's just working so well. You can see some gameplay footage in a separate video that I recorded. My video editing skills are pretty much zero, so I don't know how to slice that into this video. So if you click the link in the description, you can check out the tier 16 map that I ran with 3 cartography of risk scarabs, which give you random map modifiers and destructive play. And you can see what that run looks like and how easily this character handles it. Killed the mercenary in there, just why not? See how I kill everyone that I come across unless they're one that I want to use. Okay, so the build itself, we have Scorching Ray of Immolation, and then we have a couple of support gems here, of course. Nothing unique here. Got the spell totem and then multiple totems here, so we can get as many totems out as possible. It is possible to swap out this burning damage with a more duration. So you have even a longer period that that debuff will last on monsters, and I'm not sure if that would be an improvement or not. I haven't tested it out yet, but that is one thing I plan on trying. And so as I mentioned, we try to extenuate the length of this debuff. So we have exceptional performance anointed on our amulets, which gives us increased skill duration. We have more skill duration on the tree as well, which I'll show you soon. And then we've got temp change here, which is a curse, which also increases the amount of time that debuff will last on the monster. So that's how we're scaling our damage the main way. As far as the items go, I'm using Dark Seer, +2 levels. It's a good general purpose tool for this. There are going to be better scepters or wands that could be used that will have the +2 levels, and then also some dot multi, which would definitely improve this, or fire damage, increased fire damage as well. Pretty much anything that would work for a Righteous Fire build probably would be good for this build as well. This is just an easy way to get +2 levels. It's a little expensive this league. I spent 6 divines on this, and it's really not necessary, but it is nice. You could probably find another +2 level wand or scepter. I don't know what the prices on those would be. Probably make it yourself with the recombinator, but I don't know how to do that. As far as the helmet goes, I have one that has the mana reservation efficiency here, so we can get all of our auras in. Also, this item comes with a unveiled mod, and in my case, I don't know if it's in every case, I assume it's every case, you can unveil +2 levels to gems. So ideal kind of, and this also got Eldritch Battery, so we don't have to worry about mana. Totem skills generally is a lot of mana, and you're gonna have to figure out some way of mitigating that mana usage. Eldritch Battery is really the easiest way to do that. So this is a pretty good item for our build. Gives you this Feast of Flesh, which returns some health to you periodically, consumes a corpse and gives you some health. So that's slightly helpful as a recovery mechanism. Sometimes it'll save you, but it's not that reliable, to be honest. But otherwise, the other stats on this helm are really helpful for the build. The shield here, I wanted to get as much block as I could, so I went on the search website. I looked for this base, which is your highest armor evasion base, and I looked for increased armor and invasion, or rather increased chance to block, so I get the maximum block chance. And then I just took a look at what was on the trade site to see what was available. And I noticed that you can get regen, and I was looking for some resistances on it as well. This one was there. I think I paid 100. I paid 100 chaos for this. It had one empty prefix. What you can do now is use a Shaper Exalted Orb, and you can use that to add a mod. The only empty slot was a prefix, so it's going to add a Shaper prefix. The only prefix that's available is +1 totems. So it's extremely, even I can craft this shield. So it's kind of a perfect shield for this, as you'll see at the regen. And then I've also taken the +1% regen for overcap fire resistance and the fire mastery on the tree. I'll show you that as well in a minute. All right. Boots, I've got the Stampede. This is good for movement speed and also cooldown recovery for your travel skill. So I'm using Frostblink. So actually it feels pretty good with this cooldown recovery. Main thing I wanted here was an additional anoint, and it's really not necessary. You could use any kind of boots that fit the build with the mods that you want, but this gives us a bit of extra damage that would be a few more points than we really have to spend on the tree. So again, totally not necessary, but it's nice to have. I dropped them from Blight, so that's the main reason I decided to use them. I had them. Alright, I told you about the amulet. It's a replica dragon's thing, Blight, and it's got a +3 to all Scorching Ray gems. I think this is the best amulet that you can get for this build. It's got some small amount of elemental resistances, some mana reservation efficiency. Nobody's playing Scorching Ray, so when I bought this, it was quite cheap. I don't know if that's still true or not, but probably is. The gloves I crafted, I bought the base, and I used an essence. And what was I looking for here? The increased armor and evasion, I believe. Actually, I can't remember now. But in any case, I got pretty lucky with these resists. So I decided to use those. Going for all armor and evasion, because I wanted as much armor and evasion as possible. We're scaling that up with our Stone Golem buff, which we'll talk about in a minute. Rings, I got stats and chaos resist. We need a lot of stats on this build, so I got them here on my rings, basically. Body armor, I crafted as well. I did use an essence on this. I took the essence that gives you the armor roll. I forget which it's called. Take a look. Dread, let's see, yeah, Essence of Dread. It can also go Essence of... Essence of Doubt, the Deafening Essence of Doubt. Will do the same basic job. You want a good roll of evasion or armor, and then you want to get lucky with your other stats so that you have a high armor and evasion together. I think I spent, the base was very cheap, and I spent probably 1 divine's worth of essences getting this roll, and then I 6-linked it myself, so that was probably another divine's worth of fusing. So for 2 divines, this is a pretty good body armor, and it was kind of fun to make it. It's an easy crafting process, so something even I can do. Alright, so that's the gear here. I've got my guard skill here. So I'm using Steel Skin. It's linked to automation and more duration. I'm using this for 2 reasons. The good reason is that it makes you immune to bleeding during the effect. I don't have immunity to corrupted blood yet, so this is kind of my partial workaround until I get that fixed. So this works pretty good. Also, I was using Molten Shell before, and the effect combined with Righteous Fire is kind of blinding, so that was getting to be a little hard on the retinas, so I decided Steel Skin would be a little bit more friendly. As far as aura goes, I have Malevolence, damage over time. I've got Zealotry, which was the next best damage aura that I could use. I think it's the spell damage that helps. I've got Tempest Shield for spell block and immunity to shock. And I've got Skitterbots for applying shock and chill. This may change, and when we get to the tree, we'll talk about that. Okay. Talked about the main links. Over here, we've got our golems. Chaos Golems gives you damage over time and chaos resistance. Now, I'm an elementalist with Liege of the Primordial, which gives you 100% increased buff effect of golems, and then I get 80% more buff effect of golems. So these numbers, in effect, are almost tripled. 280% of the value is listed. So that's a pretty decent amount of damage over time multiplier, and that's pretty decent chaos resistance right there. When the golem is alive, though, of course. Alright, lightning golem, we got cast speed, we got mana generation, which is, we've got Eldritch Battery, so it doesn't do anything. It's just cast speed. I'm not even sure if it's really worth it. Cast speed makes the totem start up a little faster and rotate a little faster, apparently. Is this 30% noticeable? I'm not entirely sure. We get cast speed from Sleepless Sentries on a cluster duel, so this maybe could be something different, could be better, I'm not sure. Flame Golem is just increased damage, that's always going to be a good thing, and AoE, I don't know that anything really especially benefits from increased AoE in my build, but anyways, it's... And then Stone Golem, which is huge. 20% increased defenses, but nearly tripled, so nearly 60% increased defenses. That's your armor, that's your evasion, I think that's your energy shield even. That's a very significant boost to your defenses, and that's why I went for all armor, evasion, armor as much as I could. So this guy also gives you life regen, around 300 life per second. That's pretty decent, and it also taunts, so it's pretty good overall. Alright, so I've got Wave of Conviction on a separate spell totem so that it can apply exposure. Since I have Ancestral Bonds on the tree, I can't do any damage with spells myself, and I believe that means that I can't apply exposure myself with this, so I need a trap or a totem to do it for me. I think that's true. I am not entirely sure, but that's the assumption that I have. I haven't tested it. And then you might be wondering why you're hearing this constant explosion in the background. And that is because I have a Spectre here linked to Infernal Legion. So he's burning, and he burns things that he touches, and then at the end he explodes because he is a dark marionette. Perfect dark marionette. So he explodes for 5% of life as physical fire lightning damage, which is probably relatively trivial, but scorches. So it's 2 links to apply Scorch to some monsters. And generally they're going to be the monsters that are longer lived, like bosses. Scorch reduces fire resistance, and so if this mechanism is actually working the way that I believe it does, this is a decent increase in damage. I don't even think I would have to have the Infernal Legion, because this Spectre, probably even just as a 1 link, will still go and attack the boss. I'm sure the boss or the boss's ads will kill it very easily, and then it'll blow up and cause Scorch. But Infernal Legion just guarantees that behavior is going to happen. It probably happens somewhat more reliably. Relatively new thing that I'm testing out, but so far it seems to be working. I've got Righteous Fire here. I've got enough regen to sustain it. I turn it on. Yeah, I'm steady. So I've got a pretty good amount of regen, which is nice in a map or a situation where I just want the regen, that I don't have to turn it on. If I do turn it on, though, I get the additional spell damage that it provides. I've got Frostblink as my movement. I don't know why, I just really prefer Frostblink. ever since I played Frostblink Ignite on the Chieftain. I really prefer this. I tried Flame Dash for a little while, and I just don't like it. Maybe I just don't have enough cast speed, but Frostblink, it suits my style. And then, of course, I've got my Curse, Temp Chains. Okay. So, I kind of can't talk about my character in this league without talking about the mercenary. And so,
Don't poke around too long.
I'm using the Flame Quiver. Got a Lyric Cast on here, which I believe, I assume this works. Increases the damage of nearby allies. I've got Shaper's Seed for 4% life regen. This one definitely does work. I see it on my buff bar. So that's good, and that also helps keep the golems alive. So I mentioned the golems are great while they're alive, and they do die sometimes. Surprisingly not as much, but I think it's mainly because this is a totem build, and the golems tend to stay with me with the totems, which are away from the monsters. Not entirely, but for a pretty good portion. When I was playing some heist earlier, you tend to wait around while doors are opening, and the monsters are kind of, you're in the monsters, then it's sort of hard to get away. I noticed that in those scenarios, these golems were taking a lot more damage, and a lot more danger of being killed. So when you're actually mapping, or even fighting a boss, they hold up a lot better than I expected, but they do die periodically. They get resummoned because of the Liege of the Primordial, but still. I've got Anathema, so this mercenary can apply all the curses. I'm applying Temp Chains, and she can apply Flammability. She's got Blasphemy Flammability, which is perfect for this build. And then Alchemist's Mark, which I don't really know how helpful this is. It creates burning ground based on any ignites on the monster, but I think it's only the ignites from the mercenary. So I don't know if that's actually doing much of anything. I suppose it's preventing energy shield recharge, but it's probably a pretty trivial amount of damage. And it means that I have to be able to support 3 curses. So a Diodre's, whatever that ring is called, that gives you an extra curse, or wind scream. I needed this Anathema to make it work. That's 3 curses. It cost me about 80 chaos, and it looked to me like the prices were falling, but I think it was around 80 when I bought it. Have Comb's Binding, which converts physical damage to fire. So in theory, this is somewhat of a defense. I don't know how well it works nearby. She's not nearby the monsters usually because she's firing at range. So I kind of question if this is useful or not. Maybe. I don't know what else to put in there, so it's fine the way it is. And then Legion of Fury, so theoretically she could apply Scorch and also cause this fire effect explosion. I never see it though, so I don't think it is actually functional. Maybe if this was a melee mercenary that was up close in the monster pack, it would work. I'm not sure, but I never see it, so I think this is basically not doing anything. And that's why I decided to add this Spectre to apply Scorch. So we got 3 curses, Scorch, so it's a pretty good reduction of fire resistance. This Alchemist Mark, like I said, I don't think it does anything, but the other 2 curses are highly effective. This lowers the fire resistance, and then also Temp Chains increases the length of the debuffs and how many debuffs we can stack from our totems. As far as flasks, got instant flask with anti-bleed, pretty typical. Rumi's concoction. This is just to fully cap my attack block, which is just below. I can probably fix that another way later on, but for now this does the job. Gives me some increased armor. Quartz Flask gives me phasing, is the main thing that I care about. Also have a chance to avoid being ignited, so I have immunity to shock because of Tempest Shield. I have can't be frozen from my Pantheon, Brine King. And then I have this, which is okay to prevent ignite. It's not ideal, but good enough. I can't have the normal immunity to burning because it turns my Righteous Fire off. Alright, I've got a Jade Flask for more evasion, and then I've got Quicksilver for movement. Okay, so take a look at the tree. I leveled this using my Witch Absolution leveling guide. Works with any Witch Ascendancy, and it's really strong in the campaign. Now with the Golems and with the mercenaries, it's, you know, it's crazily strong. So, super easy leveling this character. Alright, I started off with spell damage originally when I was playing Absolution, and I respect, but other than that, the tree didn't really change that much. We got some life here, got some life here, got life here, got life here, got life here. In terms of defense, we've got spell block from this wheel here. More spell block here. I find with these characters that tend to stand back from the action, the spell block is more important defensively than attack block, so I prioritize that. But I've got spell block on these two wheels, and then I've got attack block here. My attack block isn't quite capped. Just take a look at that. Yeah, 61% attack block without Rumi's, the Flask. And then my spell damage here at 78. If I drink the Flask, you can see I hit my cap. Oh, almost. I'm close, anyways. Okay. In terms of damage, I've got the fire wheel up here. I need one more point to complete it, though. Got dot multi here. I've got some totem damage here. This is my anointment. Got damage down here. And we have skill effect duration here. This whole wheel actually is really good. It's worth pathing down here actually, because you've got, if you took the anointment, you'd just get 25. But since you path down here, you've got an extra 20 plus 10. And then we also have exceptional performance anointed. Since I get 2 anoints, since I have the Stampede Blight Boots, which allow for an anointment, and also on my amulet. So it's a pretty good amount of skill effect duration. Let's see, I've got Ancestral Bonds here. So this is typical what you would take for a totem build, and it gives you an extra totem, but at the expense that you can't do any damage with your spells yourself. And so the consequence of this is that some of the things that we would normally do, like use an Arcanist brand to cast a Wave of Conviction to cause exposure, I don't believe that works when you have this spect. So what I wanted to do was to get a Shaper Shield with the +1 totems on it like I did, and then unspec this, and then it'll allow me for my spells to work normally. And so a couple of reasons I want to do that. I'm Elementalist here, and these 3 nodes for the Ascendancy really don't do anything if you can't hit, if you can't do damage. So this first one here, well, we don't really care about Ignite. It doesn't actually do anything for us. We're not scaling Ignite really, or not easily. Whatever Ignite we could create isn't going to do much damage, so that's not going to help us that much. Might be a little bit of damage, but the main thing would be to gain this defensive node here, 40% of physical damage converted to fire. So anytime you can do that, you're in a good place, because it's harder to build physical defense than elemental defense. Alright, so the main one I'm looking at here though is Shaper of Storms. So if I'm able to do damage to hit, then I'll be able to shock, and I'll be able to increase damage. So I can use an Arcanist brand to basically reduce incoming damage, increase my damage, and also apply reduce resistances with exposure through Wave of Conviction. So I think this will all work if I unspec my Ancestral Bonds, but I really need to model it out in Path of Building to make sure that is correct. What I do have though is Liege of the Primordial. This gives me an extra golem, 100% buff effect, immune to elemental damage, and then the golems return after 4 seconds if they're killed. So with the 4-second recovery, the problem with that is usually when they're getting killed is when you need them the most. So your golems will always be there when you don't need them. That's guaranteed. When you really need them, they're not always going to be there. They're going to be there most of the time, but not all the time. And that's kind of anything that's not a consistent effect in Path of Exile is kind of problematic. So it's a super strong node. I really did. I thought it would be strong, but I underestimated how strong this really is. This league. So it's a great addition, but there is a kind of a downside to it. I'm taking a Bastion of Elements for some additional elemental protection, and then Mastermind of Discord. So when I'm able to apply exposure, because it says you inflict, so I don't know that my totem is me. It might be, but one way or the other, I'm going to be testing these things out in Path of Building to find out the correct answers. But as it is now, I don't know if this is doing anything or not. It might be. Okay, and that's my cluster jewel. So have this node here doesn't doing anything particular especially for me, but this one is really huge. So this onslaught really makes the totems much more effective. I didn't think it would be that big of a difference, but it is really noticeable when I enabled this. So definitely an excellent cluster here. Probably if I can get a Megalomaniac with something with the Golem buff effect. I forget what that's called. Primordial Might, something like that. And then Sleepless Sentries. I could get that on a one cluster jewel. That would be pretty incredible, but I don't know, it's probably too expensive or they don't exist, I'm not sure. This minion life wheel, I don't even know if it's really necessary. It's not a lot of life, and regen, especially 1% per second, it's not actually very much. So the leech, I don't know how much damage they do. I don't know how effective this is as far as the recovery goes. I'm going to experiment with unspecking this because I could really use some more points in other places. I'd like to get a jewel down here that has corrupted blood can't be inflicted on you. Or I can come down and get some maximum resistances, although I'm in a pretty good place for elemental resistances. The jewel socket's probably more valuable. I need to finish this fire wheel here. There's just a couple little things that I could take. Actually, I'm just 1 point away here for my jewel socket and the cluster jewel, so I'd start there. But that's where it is now. I have read on the forum that there's a timeless jewel that's can be really effective in this build. Brutal Restraint, I think. I haven't looked into it yet. I don't know what it does, but I might consider that as well. Although, I don't know that damage is really an issue. And, I don't know, defense isn't really an issue either. This character is pretty strong. You can watch the gameplay video. For the characters I normally build, this character is really strong. I generally play off meta weird builds that are ill-advised, and they honestly are usually not that great. If I can map with them in tier 16 scenario, then that to me is a success. This character really exceeds that. I haven't really even fully stressed this character. I would say I'm gonna guess it could run T17s, but I haven't tried. I haven't dropped one yet. Okay. That is my character. What else can I show you? As far as Atlas tree goes, I switch it to a bossing tree right now. I've got strong boxes in there. I've got map tier. I got heist because I haven't played heist in a long time. I wanted to check it out. But I added destructive play, which drops in multiple map bosses at the end of a map when you have Maven, and so it definitely makes those encounters a lot more interesting. And this character handles them just fine. Again, you can see my gameplay video. I fought some of the memory bosses so far, and you know, I never really even felt in danger in those fights. They were easy for this character. So it's kind of an all-rounder. It's not super fast, it's not slow, it maps decent, it bosses well, its tankiness is very good. It's done everything I needed to. I started off here in the Blight clusters. Blight. I really enjoy Blight, and I think it's really a great way to begin the league to accumulate some early currency. I also expected Abyss, but kind of didn't really work out very well, so decided to opt out of that. Okay, that's my build. There is a link to the build in the description. I would not consider this build to be complete. Still experimenting with it, and I'll continue to play it for at least a little bit longer before I move on to my next project. Hopefully that was interesting, and I'll see you next time.